One thing to know about me is that I am a textbook worrier. I tend to worry about a lot of things, about, school, job, future, visions of the future, visionary wisdom towards the future. What's my path going to look like? Romance, anything there is to worry about, I probably worry about it. And I've been trying to counteract that. And I was reading a little bit of scripture. I was reading through the Sermon on the Mount a few days ago, and it occurred to me during prayer and reading scripture and that I think the best way to deal with worry is just being present. Just being present. And those of you who have read the Sermon on the Mount probably know where I'm pulling that from. But I was praying and, thinking about this stuff, and the same phrase kept coming to mind as I was thinking about these things, asking for guidance on certain topics and things in my life. The same thing kept coming to mind, is how that was cross the bridge when you get there, cross the bridge when you get there, cross the bridge when you get there. This call to be present, to be in the moment, to make the right decision in the moment, and don't worry about things beyond that. Tomorrow has its own troubles. Tomorrow will worry for itself. And that's something I've been trying to implement. And that's really difficult for me because I am a worrier. It's profoundly challenging, especially in this world we live in where we're constantly being bombarded by different stimulus, from advertising, from our phones in general. Phones are a huge culprit of that. So I've been trying to be present, and it's challenging. And in all the things that I have my worries about, I've just been saying, okay, don't worry about it. Cross the bridge when you get there. Deal with it as it comes. And that's challenging, one, because I am a procrastinator. So when it comes to actually time to do things in the moment, I want to put it off. I want to ignore it. So that's been a challenge, but I've been trying to implement it, and it definitely works. If you actually practice it, and as long as your focus is highest orientation to the highest, trying to always do the right thing, trying to stand on the high ground all the time, as long as that's your orientation and that's what you're set out to do, then as long as you focus on that and then be present in the moment, you're good. And it's not easy to do that. It requires a lot of discipline, a lot of willpower, and just the actual willingness to make the right decision, which is challenging in and of itself, especially because some of the decisions you'll be forced to make in your life are extremely challenging like that. When we're faced with often things that we want, and then we're forced to sacrifice those things to go where we need to do what we ought to do. And that's challenging. It's extremely challenging. And sometimes I wonder if the reason I worry is so that I don't worry about the future, is so that I don't have to focus on my actions in the present, because I can just sort of alleviate some of that I alleviate the necessity for that momentary iron-willed decision making. So I've been thinking about that. I don't know what to make of all that. One of the things I've been doing to try to stay present is just get off my phone. It sounds so simple, but man, unless you're really mindful of it, it's so easy to let your phone dictate every second of your life, man. Because we essentially live as like machine hybrid, people, because we all are on our phone all the time. We rely on our phone to do all of these things. I'm recording with my phone right now. You all are seeing me through the lens of my phone. And it can be extremely challenging to put that down because we have integrated the phone into our life to be a part of us. But sometimes it means just putting the phone away, because it's so easy to fill every little moment that we have free, and we have to be present and look around and just enjoy the moment. We can just fill that with our phone if we want to. We have the ultimate tool to resolve boredom, and that's not really a good thing, actually. Boredom's actually a good thing in many ways. Boredom forces us to get creative. Boredom forces us to experience the moment. So it's so challenging to do that. But just put your phone down, and it can be helpful to remind yourself that throughout history, no one has ever lived like this ever. We are in a very unique situation because, even before smartphones, you had a phone still, but you checked your phone, made calls or answered calls for a portion of the day. You checked your voicemail at the end of the day. We didn't have to be reachable at all times throughout the day. That's a very new advancement, last 20 years, You could argue it goes back 30, when we started implementing phones into cars and things like that, but my point stands. Just turn off your phone. Leave it behind. Leave it in a different room. Go on a walk without your phone. You will be shocked how much you see and how many little details you notice, things you never even thought about before. And there they are right in front of you. And man, does that alleviate some stress and some worry. And I think that's because the phone is so integrated into us. It's a great tool because it's a source of information. We have all of man's information basically at our fingertips all the time. And we have, and it functions as a camera and notes and a calculator and, whatever, everything else that it does, and that phones can do. That one, yeah, it's a great tool, but it also can be a stressor in and of itself. And I think some of that has to do with social media, probably. I'm not one to really get super stressed out by social media, and that's probably because I don't have much of a presence. I mean, I'm on it, but I'm not making posts constantly and messaging people back and forth. I'm not that deep in, so it doesn't bother me as much, I guess. But it's still a source of stress in its own right. So put the phone down. It's a lot easier said than done, but try and put that into practice. Do what you can. Leave your phone in another room. Leave it at home. It's okay to not be able to be reached by the outside world for a few hours. It won't kill you. Yeah. And I've been thinking more about this principle of cross the bridge when you get there. But the point is, it's okay to have your worries and to have those things that you need. And it's okay to be oriented towards those things, but worrying about them will not solve them. It's just present action. Once you are oriented properly, and that's a term I've used a lot on this channel, and I will continue to use it. But what do I mean by that? Oriented properly. Well, deciding how you're going to act. What are you aiming towards? What are you looking for? What do you ultimately set out towards? And once you have that orientation and you're certain that's what you want, and that's for Christians, obviously this isn't directed at Christians, but as a Christian, and I know many of the people who watch me are Christians, It's having a relationship with God and being Christ-like. Like those are the big two things. And everything else that we might be oriented towards and chasing should be tangential of those two. Those are really the two central callings. But, even if you're atheistic or whatever, I'm not here to judge, not today at least. What are you set out towards? What principles are you going to abide by? What are you ultimately heading for? What are you looking for? And once you decide what you're looking for, once you decide what you're ultimately oriented towards, then you can be present and you don't have to worry. Then you just have to take it as it comes. You just live in the moment. And that's so cliche. And that's, it's one of the reasons I've been kind of avoiding this topic, is because there's no way to talk about it where it doesn't sound incredibly cliche. Be present, cross the bridge when you get there, live in the moment. It's like, it sounds dumb, but these things do have like deep roots if you actually look for them. There's lots of things like that. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It's like, don't, I hate that. But it's true. It is true. It does have, there's a nugget of really, really important wisdom in those types of sayings. But yeah, live in the moment. But it's not just, it has to be prefaced with you need to be oriented properly, right? Because if you don't orient yourself properly and then you live in the moment, then you're just living on a whim, on desires. And that's not what we're aiming for. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what I'm asking you to do. That's not what I'm trying to do. So you have to orient yourself first, because if you don't, then your life will devolve into a hedonic mess, right? But like, what are you looking for? What are you looking for? If you figure those out, then you are free to live in the moment, and then use your actions in the moment to try and move towards those. Do the actions that move you forward towards that end goal, or abide by those specific principles. It's like, what do you want your life to look like? This is, if you're an atheist, this might be a better way to approach the question. What do you want your life to look like? Okay. I want to have a family. I don't want to have a family, whatever. Okay. I want to be X amount successful. I want to do X, Y, Z. I want to travel these places. Set yourself out right, whatever that looks like for you. What do you want your life to look like in 20 years, 50 years, 60 years? Orient yourself towards that, and then live in the moment and act accordingly. Act according to that. And that's tricky. We have so many things vying for our attention all the time, especially with our phones, but advertising and everything. This world we live in, especially in the West here, we are dominated by advertising and people that want our attention. Attention is more valuable than money, really. If you can think about that on a little bit of a deeper level, attention is more valuable than money. So people want your attention, man. So you got to figure out what you're oriented towards, and then try and just live according to that. Move towards those goals, and avoid the people that want the things, the forces that want your attention. Sometimes that means putting down the phone. Sometimes that means, turning off your screens. I'm trying to think of other good examples, because a lot of things we're just kind of subjected to, like advertising and billboards. It's like, you're not going to get away from some of those things, because we're so surrounded by it. But maybe it means no music when driving in the car. You just need some time to be quiet and not have someone else's voice, speaking to you and showcasing a certain life or lifestyle. And, obviously that's not true of all music, but certain genres will lean into that, showcasing a certain lifestyle. Rap obviously is the example that comes to mind for me. But there are other genres, certainly. It just means focusing. It means crossing the bridge when you get there. And yeah, I think that's about as far as I can stretch this out with no other notes. I probably have some other thoughts that haven't come to mind right now. So yeah, I think that's it. Let me know if there is any other types of content you would like to see from me and from this channel. There are other things that I'm knowledgeable about, like exercise and stuff in that domain, martial arts. I have a lot of different weird interests and stuff. So if there's other things you would like to hear me talk about, if you want to take a look into my training routine, you want to see some sparring footage, you want me to talk about movies or books I've read, stuff like that. There's some things in that domain that I'd like. If you'd like me to make some more comedic videos or like just fun videos, I have some things like that, like in mind, like the Cologne video I did like 2 weeks ago, I guess. When you're seeing this, it'll be 2 weeks ago. If there's anything else you want to see me cover, topics you want me to go over, just let me know. I just made another one of those sort of like late night thoughts videos, like my original meditating on loneliness video. I made another one in that kind of vein a few nights ago. You should be seeing that now. If you're watching this video, you should have already seen that one had been uploaded. But yeah, if you want to see more of that, let me know. If there's any specific topics in this kind of domain with this format you want me to cover, tell me. I'd be happy to look into stuff and talk about it. But I just there's only so many topics and ideas that I can go over, and there are lots of other topics I would like to go through, but a lot of them require really complex, like I would have to lay out like a complex full argument for some of these things. And I don't mind doing that, but it's just a lot to do every single week, versus like this type of video where we're just kind of talking about the principle at hand, right? I'm not laying forth a thesis or a case to be made, So if there's any topics you want me to cover, let me know. And I think that's all I have to say for you. I think so. All right. I will see you all next week, and I pray you all are blessed beyond belief. Bye.